Welcome to the Simpler Trading Podcast.
Today we have Bruce Marshall with us. Welcome, Bruce.
Hello, how are you doing?
Doing well. So, Bruce, you got your start in the bonds market, is that right?
Yes, a long time ago when I started. Bond market was obviously the entry-level place to start. I started on a muni bond desk and then went into governments and corporates after that, and that was kind of the start. And that was 8 years ago.
Excellent. And then you've been doing options for how long?
I switched into options probably, 5 years later. Over 20 years ago, 22 years ago, something like that.
And your focus is primarily on income option strategies, is that right?
Yes, correct. And selling premium primarily.
And what are your favorites?
The old standby is always the iron condor. That's always been a consistent moneymaker for, my entire career. Butterflies, if you trade them correctly, then of course calendars, and they all have different, different times to put them on different Greeks so they can complement each other in different market environments. So, all three of those, I interchange those as needed depending on market conditions and volatility conditions.
And what do you see in volatility right now?
We are very, very low volatility-wise right now. Obviously, we are crossing, new highs across the board on all indexes except the NASDAQ at this point. So with that happening, Vols are, extremely low right now. So obviously, I want to be a vol buyer instead of a vol seller. Which I'm doing more calendars and butterflies at this point. I do have some iron condors on, but and some spreads, but primarily, butterflies and calendars at this point in time.
Okay, so you're more dynamic. You're not just always just a volatility seller.
Right, correct, right. And you really have to be over the long term because we go through prolonged periods where there's just not a lot of vol to sell unless you go out, very, very far in time, and it's kind of may or may not be worth it.
Right. It does seem like there's a lot of people out there though that get stuck in that either being a vol seller or being a vol buyer rut. Essentially, they get they pick one and stick to it regardless of the circumstances.
Right. Exactly. And I think people tend to have a comfort level with one or the other, but to really be consistent, you need to be you need to be utilizing both because they do complement each other.
Right.
I mean, obviously, vols, they're going to go up, they're going to go down, they're going to change. They're going to always change.
Right. And so tell me about your service, the bias service.
Okay. We're actually coming up on an anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, 3-year anniversary, and at the end of this year. So I was doing classes for simpler options, several years ago, and people, they were taking the classes, kept asking me, can you show us examples of trades, and is there a way we can follow you on trades and everything? So, I was kind of kicking around the idea. Well, I'll start a little trade service, and I'll post the trades, and people can see what I'm doing, what I buy, what I sell. And which is just mirroring what I do personally.
Right.
I have done personally for the last 20 years, and it's been very, very successful. I do manage the trades, all the way through the life of the trade, post any kind of defending measures or adjustments or things like that.
Okay, so it's not just here's the trade and then you kind of let it go at that. And...
Right. Exactly. And I guess the funny thing about it initially, I was just going to post the trades. I'm going to buy this butterfly and that's it.
Right.
Well, what happened, that evolved into getting a lot of email questions, why'd you pick those strikes and what's your exit strategy and so forth. And so I started doing a little more detail on explaining the trade as I went along, which evolved into, it was never supposed to be a teaching type structure, but most people tell me that that's what they get out of it because I explain trades, in minute detail all the way through and why I'm doing it and what what our goals are and how to defend it and so forth. So,
right.
It's still technically not an educational service. It's just a trade service, but I do go into a lot of detail explaining why the trade, does what it does and so forth.
Right. Right. Now, do you find that having to put it out there like that keeps you kind of more honest to your trading rules and makes you a better trader?
Absolutely. It's funny you mention that because to my knowledge, I may be totally wrong, but I don't see anybody else actually posting live trades. Most of the things that I've ever seen were theoretical trades. And, I don't mind throwing them out there because I like for people to see what I'm doing. And these are the real trades. And
right.
The real entry point, the real exit point. We don't always have winners, obviously. Over the last 3 years, I track all this. I've got a computer software program that tracks all this stuff. And, over the last 3 years, I've probably run about low 70% win to loss ratio, 72, 73% winners. But that does not mean that we don't have losses. And the key is containing the losses dollar-wise. So you can't have, a $1,000 winner and a $5,000 loser.
Right.
That math doesn't work. So, try to be very disciplined in how I manage the trades, and that's the key to staying profitable trading for a long period of time.
Absolutely.
The biggest problem, with trading is consistency that I see.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to mention about bias service?
Like I said, I run the gamut of trades depending on market conditions. I don't ever put on a trade just for the sake of putting on a trade. I have to have a reason and so forth. I will typically use about 8 to 10 trades a month. Probably and 10 would be on the high end. Probably 3, 4, 5 would be on the very low end. But again, I guess the unique thing that I do is to lead people, take people all the way through the trade, and I actually show my entries and so forth, and and I do a weekend video update that explains the trade and so forth, and so I think it's very, very beneficial service to people that either maybe are newer to trading or just want ideas for trading.
Great. And how long do the trades usually last? Are we talking a couple days, a week, month?
Normally about a month. Actually, my average is about 20 days.
Okay.
I will throw weekly in there every now and then. It's not a day trading service, and it's typically not a weekly trading service unless a really good opportunity presents itself.
Sure.
So, again, typically I'm in and out in a trade for roughly about 20 days. It's my average. It has been my average for a long, long time.
Would you say then this is a good service for people who can't sit at the computer and watch the markets all day?
Absolutely. That was kind of the original purpose, because I used to manage a little fund, and I would do covered calls and sell cash covered puts and things like that, and those are very hands off. That was what I intended this to be, for people that have a job or retired and they play golf or do whatever.
Right.
So they don't have to sit at the computer all day.
Great.
But I found that most of the the correspondence that I've had with people that are in bias they can look at it a little more than that. So it does help to beef up the P&L, to throw some butterflies in there and some iron condors and things like that don't require a lot of heavy duty hands-on maintenance. You might have to know where the market is, on a daily basis, but not necessarily micromanage anything.
Sure.
Things typically, we don't have a lot of urgent fires to put out or things like that. Even when the market gets crazy, things are relatively calm typically.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time today, Bruce.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by Simpler Trading. For more information, visit simplertrading.com.